Hi BookTube, and welcome to part 2 of my top 12 favorite books of 2014. If you haven't watched part 1 before, it'll be linked in the description bar. So basically these are my favorite books from each month from June until December. Are you ready? I'm not, apparently. Okay, so my favorite book in June is Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. This, I have to say, it is very rare, I believe, to find a book that changes the way you read and think about writing. Especially when it's not a book about writing. And it was very seriously did this. It's very hard to sum up the plot because it is so very complicated. There's basically kind of like three main things going on. You have the Enfield Tennis Academy, where you have the Incandenza family. Then you have the Ennet House Recovery House, where you have a variety of different people, but in particular a guy named Don Gately. And then a group of French-Canadian wheelchair assassins. Yes. But they all basically center around addiction. Whether it's to drugs and alcohol, or whether it's towards entertainment, perfection, or even tennis. It's really quite a surreal story that involves you completely in the story, even to the physical point where you are going back and forth in the novel between the main story and the footnotes that happen. And even the footnotes have footnotes, so you're going back and forth, you know, through this kind of like a tennis match. I just believe that Wallace has such a wonderful way with words, and this novel can be described as a maximalist novel. Like, there's nothing left. You know, he uses all the words, but he's really able to switch between the different characters just by, you know, their word choices and the way that they speak. You can definitely tell that, oh, okay, this is this character and that is that character, and all this stuff. It's a wonderful book, and it's really inspiring to read something so out there that is so well done and appreciated by a lot of people. That's June. In July, my favorite book was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm sure everyone knows this story by now. I just want to say it's a beautiful book in every aspect, in the prose, and the characters, and the plot. Even some of the book covers are really, really beautiful. Just an overall great book. Okay, in August, my favorite book of that month was American Dervish by Ayad Akhtar. This book had been sitting on my shelf for a really long time before I actually got around to reading it, and I'm glad I did, because it's a really, really good book. I'm going to use that word that we all hear throughout our studies of literature, the Bildungsroman. It's a story of a young Pakistani-American boy named Hayat Shah, as he grows up from a young boy into a young man. His family and friends are actually all varying degrees of religious. So we have kind of like everything from atheist to secular believer to you know, just, you know, someone who just regularly goes to church and whatever like that, to like the hardcore, you know, fundamentalist people, and the extremists. And they all have some aspect on his journey. What I really appreciated was that Akhtar was really good at showing and not telling us about the Muslim religion and all these varying degrees of it. So I actually learned a lot through that way. It was very well done and very well explained, and he gave lots of examples through his characters and their actions and everything, and how things happen there. It was very well done, and I really appreciated learning a lot about that faith through this book in that fashion. In September, I didn't read a lot, but my favorite book that month was Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. It's another example of a very beautiful book. It's not a very long book, and I'd say about just over half of it is pictures of seagulls. I wish I had it here to show you some of these pictures. You would think a book about seagulls wouldn't be that entertaining or, you know, very interesting at all, but it was actually very well done. So we follow a seagull named Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and how he strives for perfection and what he decides to do once he reaches this high level of skill. And I really just admire this book for the philosophy it presented, and I don't want to spoil that philosophy because that's basically the whole reason for the book. Okay. October, it's another Mike Griswold book, and this is called What I Was. She's quickly becoming one of my all-time favorite authors. I know when I pick up one of her books now that, you know, the prose is going to be beautiful, and the stories are going to be unique. So this is actually a YA book that doesn't contain a romance. She must have missed a chapter or something there, you know, you think, but no, it's beautiful, and I really appreciated that aspect. It's a story about friendship. Basically you have this, you know, young boy who's sent off to a boarding school on the coast of England, and while he's slacking off one day, he meets another young boy who's kind of living off the grid. The government doesn't know he exists, he's not going to school, he just kind of makes a living by selling fish and crabs and all the other stuff he can get from the sea, and he lives in his dead grandmother's hut. It's just a very beautiful book. I don't know how else to fit it. The friendship between them is so unique in that it's not just like, you know, oh, let's talk about this and play video games and all this kind of stuff. It's just kind of like, no, we're just comfortable around each other. We don't need to talk. You know, we'll just be in the same room and do our own things and engage once in a while and all this kind of stuff, but it's really quite a beautiful friendship. And that's what really drives the story forward, and I really appreciated that. Okay, we're almost at the end. November, I read The Master and Margarita. It's not The Master and the Margarita or Master and the Margarita. Margarita is a name, not a drink. And this was written by Mikhail Bulgakov. It's a Russian novel. It can basically be summarized as the devil comes and runs amok in Russia. And in this case, the devil, or Voland as he's called, isn't really evil, that kind of sense of the devil, but he's more of a trickster. And he has a kind of a crew with him that involves a giant talking cat, and there's some Russian artists, and you get pieces of a novel about Pontius Pilate, who is actually a character at the same time. Are you confused yet? That's the whole point I found was, you know, that you're involved with all these characters and being caught up in all this stuff and being tricked by what's going on. I mean, the novel's more than just entertaining. It has a lot of commentary about Russian life at the time, especially after the communist revolution and all that. Okay. December, I know it's not over yet and I'm still reading a book, but it will be hard to push this book off of my favorite for this month, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir. I listened to the audiobook read by R.C. Bray, who has a very nice voice to listen to. It's about a astronaut who gets left behind on Mars, and he has to struggle to survive until he can be rescued, if he can be rescued, and if the rescue mission goes successfully. And I have to say, Mark Watney wins most likable character of the year. He's just so entertaining to read and easy. I think he'd be like an easy character to get along with, personally, for me. And it's really well done. Andy Weir does a very good job because for a huge chunk of the novel, he's the only character. He's the only person we're following, you know, and he has to really carry that burden, and he does a really good job at doing that. I looked it up. Apparently the science is quite accurate, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So not only were you getting, you know, kind of like geeky pop culture references and all this kind of stuff from him, but you're also getting a lot of technobabble and science-y technical terms and everything. And I really do feel like I can now grow potatoes on Mars if I was stuck there. And so I just think this book checks all the boxes, plot-wise, character-wise, and prose-wise. It was a very awesome book in general. So that's the end of my favorite books of 2014. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and what your favorite reads of 2014 were. And remember to keep on reading.
Hey, you might want to check out Pickle's Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and other social media links in the description bar underneath.